Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 946B, and today's date is April 15th, 2016, and the title of the episode is War Plans Are Being Drawn Up for World War III. Let's get into the economic collapse, political, and geopolitical news. Now, back in 2012, when we had the Sandy Hook shooting in the elementary school, and of course, as we all know, this is a complete false flag, and if you don't understand why it is, just look at Wolfgang Halbig and his site. He's been tracking this. He's been looking at all the evidence, and he has been in court proving that this was a complete hoax. But what we're seeing is their agenda right now. It's to take weapons away from the people and make it impossible for people to get certain types of weapons. And they always start with the military-looking type of weapons, and then they go down from there. And that's what they're trying to do at this point. And they've been trying for many, many years, and they've had no success whatsoever. But right now, a U.S. judge has ruled that families of the victims of the Sandy Hook shooting, they can sue the maker of the weapon used in the attack, arguing that the Bushmaster rifle is a military weapon that should have not been sold to civilians. Well, I hate to say this, but the Second Amendment says the people have the right to bear arms, and arms means military-style weapons. Bear means to hold and carry. And what's happening here is that the gun companies, they sought to reject the negligence and wrongful death lawsuit filed 2 years ago after the attack, but the Connecticut Superior Court Judge Barbara Bellis said a 2005 federal law protecting gun makers from lawsuits does not shield the company from legal action in this case. She ruled that lawyers for the victims' families can still argue the semi-automatic rifle is a military weapon and should not be sold to civilians, which is absolutely ridiculous because the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, says nothing about this, and it just tells us that we can have arms which is equal and equivalent to the military. And this whole thing probably will go to appeals court and will probably be ruled down. But the very interesting thing about this is this then will spread to other companies. Think about it. That the company shouldn't be selling this to civilians because it's a military weapon. So if we take that and we say, okay, people with military style equipment, like maybe Hummers, and they decide, okay, I'm going to get into the Hummer that I purchased, which the military uses, and I'm going to go plow down 15 people. So now, who makes it? GM? GM would be sued. And then lawyers will take this and say, okay, anyone that gets into a car and gets into an accident, it's the car manufacturer's fault. And they'll do this with any product. Ooh, a kitchen knife. Person went into a school, stabbed 15 people. Whoever made the kitchen knife, they're responsible for this. And we see that this whole thing is not about the inanimate object. It's about the person. Because people do the act, not the inanimate object. Now, you can sue the company if there's a problem with the product, if it's faulty, but you can't sue a company just because a person decided to pick up a baseball bat and smash people in the head. I mean, it's starting to feel like we're in the bizarro world at this point. And we can see what they're trying to do. They're using anything and everything they possibly can to remove the weapons from the people. And they don't even care about the rights. They don't care about the Constitution. They're so far off base at this point, it is absolutely ridiculous. And let's take this a step further. Now, we know a lot of people put their personal information on the cloud for data storage. I personally do not, because it's out of my reach. I don't like it being someplace where I don't have full control. I keep all information locked up in my safe. I back it up onto a drive, and I lock it in a safe that I have. So what's been happening here is that the U.S. government, they have access to those people who keep their information on the cloud. And internet users will never know that their information has been searched. Now, this is coming from Microsoft's president, Brad Smith. Microsoft sued the U.S. government in federal court in the state of Washington, claiming the secrecy orders have become so routine that a provision in the U.S. Constitution banning unreasonable searches or personal property no longer applies. Over the past 18 months, the U.S. government has been requesting and maintaining this secrecy regarding like 2,500 legal demands. And they're continually doing this because they feel that, oh, since you're putting it up in the cloud, we just have free access and we don't have to tell you about it. Well, if you had that information in your home, would you be okay with it? No. So you could see that they are going off the track here. They don't care about the Constitution. They don't care about the rights of the people. And we see that the CIA right now, they are looking at different investment companies to help develop artificial intelligence to sift through enormous numbers of social media postings and decipher patterns of people and actually collect information from social media and use it. So a document that was obtained by The Intercept indicates that in In-Q-Tel, the CIA's venture capital firm, they have made unpublicized investments in 38 different companies to have this completed. So what we're seeing right now is the spying has not stopped. Our rights are being completely violated every single day. And the U.S. government doesn't care. They haven't cared about the people in a very long time. They care about themselves. They care about foreign entities. They care about corporations. They care about the central bank. They care about themselves. But they don't care about the country and doing what's right for the people. They're doing everything opposite that they're supposed to be doing in office right now. And this is why all these people need to be removed at this point. Because we have to start saying enough is enough. Now, out in the EU, after the bombing in Brussels, we knew that there were going to be more draconian laws, new ways of tracking people, and we knew that this was part of the agenda. And we see the European Parliament, they adopted a plan to force airlines to share passenger information with EU states. Now, what are they going to collect? Well, passenger name. They're going to collect itinerary, travel dates, payment method, phone numbers, and any other piece of information they can possibly get from you. The data is going to be stored in a new passenger information unit, and it will be passed all over the place to keep track of you, to follow you. And we see this is more government control. This does not keep you safer. We know because everything they've done to stop the fake terrorism hasn't worked. Haven't we been doing this since 2008? It's been what? 8 years? And has anyone seen terrorism decline? No, because it hasn't. And I'm not saying these are real terrorist acts. We know these are all false flags to convince the people that there are terrorists out there. But if we believe the official story that there's terrorists running around and we need all this security, we need to spy on you, we need to keep track of you, we need to know everything about you, this will keep you safe. Have they really kept us safe if you really believe what they're saying? Actually, they're telling us that terrorism is getting worse. So, at this point, again, they're lying to us. They're lying if you believe their official story. This stuff doesn't work. But again, we know the truth. We know that these are false flags. We know they're using it for certain agendas. And this is why it will never work. The only thing that will happen from all of this is they'll keep tabs on everyone. They'll remove more rights. They will violate more rights of the people. That's their main objective. Now, South Korea is reporting that North Korea, they launched a ballistic missile off its east coast. But they're saying the launch failed. And this is according to the South Korean defense minister. Now, the U.S. is saying that they tracked the missile, but they're not going to reveal the details of the missile or the type of missile. And they're going to leave it up to North Korea to explain what actually they did. Now, this is very odd, because if they're trying to prove that North Korea is actually doing this, why wouldn't they show the proof? And I find this happening over and over again. They're putting out information, they're telling you what happened, but they're refusing to show proof, or they have nothing to back up what they're saying. Now, the government needs to prove to the people that this is actually going on. They just can't say it. They need to show the people, this is what's happening, here is the proof. And I notice with everything that they're doing at this point, they kind of leave off the proof part. They use a lot of propaganda. They use a lot of words to try to convince you that this is really happening, but they're really not showing the proof. It was almost like in Ukraine when they kept on saying, oh, Russia is invading, Russia is invading. And of course, back then, they tried to show proof, but they were showing these black and white satellite imagery with Photoshop drawings. They were showing pictures all the way back to 2009, and all of it was debunked. So they stopped showing the fake information, and now they decided, we're not going to just show anything anymore, and we're just going to say it, and hopefully the people believe it. But we see out in Ukraine right now is that the fighting there is intensifying. The OSCE is warning that things are getting worse in that area, that fighting is intensifying. Poroshenko, he wants a police mission in Donbass. He's trying to coordinate this. Of course, he has not fulfilled the Minsk II ceasefire agreement whatsoever. It looks like they're not even trying to go ahead and complete the deal. And it looks like at this point that they're trying to get into the EU because they got rid of Yatsenyuk. And it looks like they want the southeastern and the Crimea area back with Ukraine, because this is what the central bankers paid for. I mean, they didn't spend billions of dollars in this coup d'etat to only get the west portion of Ukraine. That's a waste for them. They want the entire country, and they want the port on the Black Sea. So we see right now the U.S. is trying to provoke war everywhere. The U.S., they have launched military patrols in the South China Sea. They're rotating weapons in the Philippines right now, bringing in more advanced weapons there, trying to provoke China. We see a Russian jet, which we discussed before, flew very close to the USS Donald Cook. Last time this happened, they knocked out all the electronics with their jamming system, and the USS Donald Cook had to be towed away. And the U.S. is going crazy over this, and the U.S. destroyer was in the Baltic Sea, and the jets flew very close. They were unarmed completely, but you have to remember, the USS Donald Cook is deployed in the peaceful Baltic Sea off the coast of the Russian exclave of Kaliningrad, right near one of their bases, and jets are flying back and forth. And yes, if they see a warship very close to here, they're going to check it out, just like the U.S. would check it out if Russia, China, or any other nation had ships in the Gulf of Mexico, sailing very close to a base, out in the Pacific, out in the Atlantic. Even when the U.S. or Russia flies their bombers in international areas, yes, jets fly up to meet it, and the same thing was happening here. And of course, Russia's saying they were operating well within their safety guidelines, that the U.S. freedom of navigation near a Russian naval base does not at all cancel the principle of freedom of flight for Russian aircraft. But John Kerry said something very interesting, saying that the U.S. would have been justified shooting down an unarmed Russian jet, which is kind of strange in itself, because we're at peace right now. We're not at war with Russia. It was an unarmed jet, and why would you think that one of the moves would be to shoot it down? Well, that's what they want to do. They were hoping maybe the jet was armed, because they would have said, okay, it was armed, and that's why we had to shoot down, because we didn't know the intentions of the jet, because they had Turkey do this in Syria. Because what are they trying to do? They're trying to start a war. Now, out in Libya, we see that NATO, France, US, UK, Egypt, Italy, they're all ready to go into Libya. Of course, they keep using the idea that they're waiting for the unity government to invite them in, and then they'll go, because we don't want to just go in there not invited. The European Union right now is saying that they will consider moving security personnel into Libya to help stabilize the country, only if the unity government invites us in. And all of this, and what all of this is telling us is they're going to be invited in. They're just building this up to let everyone know that this new government that's being put into place will invite everyone in. Ground troops, air bombings, you name it, they will be allowed to come into Libya. And this is what they use before all of this begins, to show everyone, no, they invited us in. This wasn't planned. Now, Turkish President Erdogan, he is a complete and utter dictator. And he's going after everyone at this point. If you make fun of him, he doesn't like it. He wants you jailed. And it looks like he's going after a German comedian. And this German comedian released a satirical video poem about the Turkish president. And it seems that he wants charges brought up on this comedian. Now, the video fell under the protective cloak of the right to artistic freedom, press freedom, and freedom of opinion. But remember, dictators don't care about that. But Germany does have a law which is rarely used in Section 103 of the Criminal Code. Insulting organs or representatives of foreign states is illegal. And it seems like they're going to be using this law to go after this person. Now, they haven't really used it. We know in Germany they have these parades where they have political figures and they make fun of them, but they don't use the law at that point in time. So right now it looks like Merkel is folding, and they're going to follow this up. But again, what they're doing right now is taking away the freedom of expression, freedom of speech, because what we're seeing is dictators all around the globe trying to remove the rights of the people, and this is how it begins. And it gets worse and worse as time goes on. Now, right now, the World Bank is estimating the damage in Syria around $180 billion. And Turkey, as Syrians flee the controlled areas of the Islamic State, they are firing on them. And a Human Rights Watch has called on Turkey to stop firing on Syrian civilians. And they're killing them. So the UN Refugee Agency asked Ankara to provide data on the possible refugee deaths in shelling on the Syrian border. And they're asking them, why is this happening? Why are you using live ammunition? Why are you firing on unarmed civilians? Which makes no sense, except that Turkey's trying to start a war in this area. And they're continually shelling on government forces. They're shelling everywhere to keep their open corridor, to keep the terrorists supplied with weapons. And Lavrov is out there saying that they should have international monitors on the Syrian-Turkish border to plug up the holes. And they're asking the United States to do that, to coordinate with them to help do this. And we know Jay Johnson was out there installing balloons to monitor the area, surveillance equipment, building a partial wall. But all of this was done was to keep track of their proxy army and to keep them moving in and out. Now, the U.S. hasn't responded to this yet because they don't want these holes plugged. They want the terrorists, the Free Syrian Army, armed and continually armed, because their main mission is to get Assad. And we see from all of this is that the U.S. is not looking to have peace. They're not looking for a ceasefire. They're looking for war. And we see right now that the U.S., they've been drawing up war plans for quite a while now. Think about all the military assets. Think about the positioning of troops. Think about the budget being upped, the president spending more money on nuclear weapons, placing a missile shield in Eastern Europe, encircling China, making deals in the Philippines, moving a new base in Japan to bring in more advanced weapons, setting up areas in Syria, those air bases, in Iraq, pushing the unity government into Libya, putting forces into Africa. This is all part of the war plans. They're putting everything into place. They're preparing for war. And they've been doing this for quite a while because it takes a while to prepare for this. And all they need right now is some type of spark to say, here we are. We are in World War III. And this is what they're trying to provoke right now. This is what we've been watching. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.